Welcome to today's video. We're going to talk about the sense of taste today, our second of the 4 different special senses. Using the example from last time, let's consider an apple that we are now eating, and you'll be able to taste it. So once you take a bite of the apple, your saliva is going to dissolve the chemicals that are part of the apple, and your receptor cells that are on your taste buds, which hopefully is a term that you recognize, will detect the chemicals that are dissolved in the saliva, and they will activate the sensory fibers that are part of one of 3 cranial nerves. So these are sensory neurons. And those sensory neurons are going to deliver the sensory impulse to your cerebral cortex, where you will recognize it as a sweet taste and also as the taste of the apple, because you can also smell and see that apple. The sense of taste is also known as gustation. The receptor cells that you have are called gustatory cells. They are actually modified epithelial cells. So they are actually going to be part of taste buds that are embedded within these bumps on your tongue. Okay, so the bumps are not taste buds. They're actually called papillae, and the taste buds are embedded here. So this is all stratified squamous epithelium. And you can see the normal stratified squamous epithelial cells here. And within them are these taste buds. So there are cells that don't really do anything here. They just help to support the structure of the taste bud as well as the cells. And the gustatory cells are these yellow ones here that have little hairs on the end. They are going to be detecting the chemicals in your saliva. So you actually have about 10,000 taste buds in your mouth and throat, and each of them have about 50 to 150 gustatory cells each. You are going to sense your tastes in your mouth and your pharynx. That's where you have your taste buds. That's where you have the gustatory cells. The gustatory cells are the receptors. They are located within each of your taste buds, and your taste buds are also located within each of the bumps, which are known as papillae. So your chemicals in the food have to dissolve in your saliva in order for the gustatory cells to detect them in the first place. And depending on what those chemicals are, they will generate they will activate different gustatory cells. Okay, there are 5 different primary taste sensations. So can you think of all 5 of them? Before we get into all 5 of those tastes, let's take a look at the tongue. So you have all these little bumps. Okay, those bumps are not actually taste buds. They are known as papillae, and within the papillae, so like kind of pinching down here, there's where we find our taste buds. Okay, so they're part of the stratified squamous epithelium. They kind of look like little bulbs here, and there are cells known as basal cells that are there to help to support, as well as the actual gustatory cells that have the taste hairs at the end that are going to be picking up the chemicals and reacting from them. So once they pick up the chemicals and they will activate the neurons that are connected here. The neurons make up part of the cranial nerve. The cranial nerve will deliver their impulses to your gustatory cortex. Okay, so let's look at the different taste sensations. So depending on what you eat, they might have different concentrations of different things. Something sweet like candy is going to have lots of sugar or carbohydrates. You detect carbohydrates as being sweet. Sour tastes originate from high concentrations of H+ ions. So things like vinegar, lemon juice, citrus foods, okay, are all acidic because they contain acids that release H+ ions. Salty tastes come from ions from inorganic salts. So just think of table salt, that's very salty. It's made up of sodium and chloride. That's an inorganic salt. Bitter tastes are kind of the opposite of sour, okay, because they originate from alkaloids, so more basic things. But not only that, but also from magnesium and calcium salts as well. Umami is actually a savory taste, and that comes from amino acids, which hopefully you recognize as being the building blocks of proteins. So foods that are high in proteins are often going to be savory, and as a result of the presence of these amino acids, But another type of savory taste comes from monosodium glutamate, which is kind of like a modified amino acid, and that's found in things like soy sauce. All right, now the pathway of gustation. So as I said, this is pretty simple. First, the chemicals that you are getting from the food that you're chewing and dissolving in your saliva has to dissolve in the saliva. At that point, it's going to reach down into the papillae to the taste buds where the gustatory cells are. The gustatory cells detect the chemicals with the taste hairs. The gustatory cells are going to be stimulated. They trigger an impulse in the connected nerve fiber. The nerve fiber might be part of one of 3 cranial nerves, depending on where in the mouth we're talking. The facial nerve is known as number 7. That's located in the anterior portion of your tongue, so towards the front. The glossopharyngeal nerve serves taste buds that are in the posterior or back of your tongue, as well as the back of your mouth. And the vagus nerve serves taste buds that are at the base of your tongue, as well as into your pharynx, which is getting back into your throat. Okay, but even though we have 3 different cranial nerves, all of them are going to conduct their sensory impulses to the medulla oblongata, which delivers the sensory impulses up to the thalamus, which will then deliver the sensory impulses up to your gustatory cortex, which is part of your cerebral cortex, which is part of your cerebrum. And that is your sense of taste.